Hey, what's up, Phil? Welcome back to Image of the Invisible. Guys, we are back at it again. Once again, your place, your home to talk about everything related to scripture and the Bible and the weird stuff that goes on in the Bible that, people don't like to talk about, but guess what? It's real and we're here to talk about it and shine some light on the truth that is in the scriptures. And tonight we got a really good one. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Shroud of Turin, which I know is kind of controversial, but guys, once we get into it, you're going to see some truth. You're going to get your eyes opened up. Phil, how's it going?
Good, man. Can't complain whatsoever. Another week gone by. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks already since the last episode. It's just time's just flying by. But yeah, definitely excited to get into this topic. Been seeing a lot of clips on this, the Shroud and stuff lately, and a lot of new information that's been popping up. So I think it's definitely interesting to talk about and all that stuff. But how have you been?
Man, I've been great. We had a tournament this weekend, soccer tournament, and it was not a winning tournament. We lost all the games, but we played in the higher tier. And that's my son, not me. I didn't play. My son played in the higher tier, his team. This is their first time doing a state level tournament at the highest tier for his age range. So yeah, it was expected we probably wouldn't win because it was all new and a really tough competition. We did the last game we almost tied, it came so close. But yeah, it was fun, and the weather was kind of gross. Today it was nice, but yesterday it was really gross. So, but anyways, it is what it is. It's soccer, and I love it, and win or lose is still fun.
Yeah, that's always good. I mean, it's definitely at least a learning experience, I'm sure, and even if he didn't win any games, I mean, it's still fun to play tournaments and stuff like that and to experience all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, obviously you want to win. No one likes losing. If you like losing, then you probably shouldn't be playing. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer that he didn't win. But I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. But it was fun though. I mean, he had fun. He got to hang out with his teammates. We
Mhm.
spent the night there. It was like 2 hours away from us. So we got a hotel room. The kids swam. We went to this awesome ramen restaurant. Man, I love me some ramen, and it was on point. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, at the very least, you got a good meal out of it.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's good. That's
Yeah.
very good.
So guys, real quick, I want to give a shout out to Fat Tack, fattack.com for all your tactical needs. They specialize in concealed carry holsters, which are they're not for bigger guys. I mean, they're for bigger guys. They're made to be comfortable, but anybody can wear them, and they're really comfortable. They're low rise, and they're appendix carry. So that if you don't know what appendix carry is, it's where you carry up front instead of like, I guess I don't know what, but a lot of people carry on their backs or whatever. But appendix is, I think, the fastest draw if you are in a situation. It's right there in front. You can get it really quick. But yeah, so fattech.com. If you need a holster, check them out because they are awesome. And if you need shirts, they do have awesome shirts, and I designed the shirts. Shameless plug.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the Shroud of Turin. So before we even get into the history, what do you think about the Shroud of Turin?
Oh man, because literally, I guess maybe 10 years ago is the first time I heard about the Shroud. And I've been interested in it for a while. And I've watched all the videos, and anytime I'm scrolling through YouTube and I see something about the Shroud, I usually watch it. And there's a lot of new information that has came out over the past year that is really incredible, and really adds a lot more credence to the Shroud being real and authentic. One of the things I don't want to spoil if you got anything in there that I'm about to say, but so the image of the Shroud is kind of weird because it's in the fabric. It's not it. There's no way, like a human way, to do it, like to fake it. the way it's inside the fabric. I don't understand how you may have a clip that talks about it, but it's like in between the layers or something like that, and it's not on the top layer. It's like it's very strange, but yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I remember hearing about it. I think probably the late '90s, maybe. There was a special on TV that I had watched about it and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely one of those things that I've always known about and heard about. You know, was definitely not really sure about if it was real or not. You know, one of those things that sort of, you know, you always sort of hear about, but you're just not quite sure, just because there's a lot of, you know, people out there that'll say that it's not real, it's fake, then they have evidence for it that it's fake, and then you have other people that say it's real and they have evidence for that it's real. So it's always kind of one of those things that you know, I took with a grain of salt and didn't really know all that much about it except for what you see, you know, on TV and stuff like that, you know. We can get into some of the history and stuff like that, but yeah, just at the very least, an interesting artifact that a lot of people, you know, either it's weird, it's either you believe that it's real or you believe that it's totally fake. There really isn't an in between, I don't think. I think most people are either like on one side or the other when it comes to it. So it's definitely one of those artifacts that's probably the most famous Jesus artifact out there.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, you know, people might know like the Cup of Christ, you know, but you know, no one's ever seen that, and it's, you know, or it's not like an actual object that's just around.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a weird thing because there's a lot of people that think that possibly um, the Holy Grail is maybe more myth than fact.
yeah, than
But
actual like an actual
yeah.
object. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's sort of like the spear of destiny as well. You know,
Mhm.
the spear that pierces the side of Jesus when he's on the cross. You know, so there's a bunch of objects that over the years people have, you know, talked about, especially in the early church days, where you had a lot of churches that were trying to make money off of, you know, Jesus artifacts and trying to make their church, you know, kind of stand out from other churches, especially in the early church and the, you know, the early Catholic Church and stuff like that. So they a lot of places, you know, they have like, you know, miracle. Oh, this miracle took place at our church. You know, this statue cried blood, or
Mhm.
you know, a bunch of different things like that. You know, during that time period. So it's hard to it's hard to really separate what's real and what's not in that kind of time period where a lot of that stuff's happening.
Yeah.
You know, but the Shroud of Turin is definitely interesting for sure. Um, did you know that? Well, as far as the shroud goes, some people speculate, some people believe, or some people don't believe that the shroud was the same burial cloth that is talked that the Byzantine Empire claimed to have, and they actually had it up until the fall of Constantinople,
Mhm.
which is in 1204 AD is when Constantinople fell, and that's when the burial cloth kind of like disappears for a while, and then it doesn't reappear until about 1353 in a village of Lyre, France, from a guy named Geoffrey de Channy, who was a I don't know, I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, but it's French, so you know what are you gonna do? Um, but he was a knight, and so he had, I don't know how he had found it or how he obtained it. You know, I don't know if this is something that was obtained after the fact, or you know, no one really knows where it comes from. If he just kind of like obtains it and then puts it on display in a church a few years later in 1355, displaying the fabric, and then a bishop by the name of Lisieux in 1390 um, kind of claims it's a forgery and it's not real. And so even early on with the shroud, there was a lot of people that's like, oh, this is real, this isn't real, this is real, this isn't real. And so for many years there, especially in 1355 to 1390, you know, the bishop himself said it was a work of clergymen to make money for churches, kind of like we were talking about before. So that's what he thought it was, which I think was interesting. But then later on, they're like, okay, you can display it at this church, but you just have to say that it's not authentic, and it's just like a representation of what it might have looked like, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until 1415 where the shroud gets removed from that church because of the 100-Year War, which I'm pretty sure is between the English and the French, was taking place during that time period. And so for safekeeping, they remove it from that church. This lady named Margaret de Chaney takes the cloth and brings it to another church, and then she refused to give it back, basically, and then like takes possession of it. So then there's like a sort of feud between her and the original church that had it. They think that they should have ownership of it. She's like, I'm not giving it back, essentially. And then she eventually gives the shroud in 1453 to Louis, Duke of Savory, and the Savory family is basically the ones who have the shroud for a long, long, long time after that. And so they ended up. What's really strange about this whole thing is because it gets denounced in the 1300s, and then by 1506, Pope Julius II authorizes the shroud as a true relic of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like, early on, it's like, oh, this one bishop's like, oh, I don't think it's real. Then you have a pope coming in saying that it is real and it is the shroud of Jesus. So it's just, I find that interesting that like you have this kind of back and forth even early on with the shroud, that, one pope saying that it is real, another bishop saying that it's not. So it's just kind of interesting that, this sort of, kind of back and forth is going on with the shroud even early on. And then 1532 comes around, the shroud gets damaged in a fire where this molten silver passes through the shroud, leaving holes in the shroud. These nuns they repair it and sew patches on those holes and stuff like that, which you can still see today. And then by 1578, Emmanuel Filbert, the Duke of Savory, opens the cloth to be brought to Turin, which is where the name Shroud of Turin comes from. And it actually moves again to Turin because there was a fire, whereas originally it was, or the second place it was held. So now it's in Turin, and that's kind of like where it pretty much stays for a long time. And then in 1694, kind of like almost 100 years later, this guy named Sebastian Valfrey makes even further repairs to the holes that were from the fire from what the nuns did. So like many people have like repaired this thing. And 1868, even more repairs are made by this girl named Princess Marina Colette or Savory. Again, the Savorys pretty much have this thing from this moment on. And then the first photograph of the shroud is taken in 1898, which is pretty cool. That like, it's still at the same place, still in existence and stuff. And then all the way up until 1983, it was with the Savory family. And then there was some tests done and stuff like that, which like we have a couple of videos to kind of get into the testing and stuff that was done on the shroud and stuff like that. Because
now, do you have a video about the photography?
I believe I do have a clip about the photography, but you should,
because that's very interesting,
just in case. Yeah, for sure. If you want, you can get into that right now if you want.
Okay, so
photographed.
Yeah, so apparently when it was photographed, they took the negative of it, and the negative was actually a positive, which is weird. Like because it didn't look like the image popped off almost three-dimensional when it was in negative form, which is weird to say the least. But that's just something pretty cool. And there's a way on the guy that was on Tony's show. I was trying to find his name a minute ago, but I don't think it is the guy that you were talking about. But it's
a different guy. Yeah,
he's partners with that guy. He was actually on there. He came on screen and talked about some elements on that show. Did you watch the whole thing? With
I watched the whole interview with Tucker. So
so there's a guy that came on, like he introduced him. He came on and talked a little bit, and then went back off screen. That's the guy that was on Tony's show.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like he was saying, there's some way you can look at an image of the shroud, even on like a computer or something, and you take your phone and you turn it into like negative mode, and you hold it up, and you take a look at the shroud, and you can actually see the same like three-dimensional image, even like if you use your cell phone to look at a just a picture of the shroud, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I understand too, like this all come another test that they did in the 70s, which I do have a clip of this. We'll play it later. But in the 70s, they did a similar test with the photograph and stuff. And it, like you said, it was like 3-dimensional, and it's the only photo that's ever done that. Like if you take a regular photo and do the same process to it using the process that they used on it, it doesn't do that.
No.
So it's one of the only one that's ever done that as far as this photo and like the 3-dimensional aspects of it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's very, very weird in its own right. Just, you know, because especially something so old, you know, it's like how could they even do that way back when?
Yeah.
You know, especially before even photograph was even a thing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, so it's definitely very, very strange. And so I think that process is called, what they did in 1976. It's VPA image analyzer is what they used.
Okay.
And 78 to that's how they saw that. Which I believe is an analyzer that they used on nuclear, something to do with nuclear, not power, but nuclear imaging or something to that effect. I'm not exactly sure what it exactly does, but I believe it was to take photographs of nuclear explosions and stuff like that is what they analyzed the image with. And that's how they figured it out, because then they tested other images, and other images wouldn't have that same effect. So definitely very, very strange. So then 1983 comes around, and then the shroud is bequeathed to the Holy See, which I believe is some sort of, group of people that that's who has it now, and they take care of the shroud and all kinds of stuff like that. So then fast forward to 2002, they remove all of the previous repairs and the patches, so that way they can photograph the backside of the shroud, which beforehand was covered up with newer cloth that they had, the nuns had put on, and the Princess Maria lady had put on there, all those other repairs that they had made. They had and yeah, Jason's audio just cut out for a second.
No, it was kid stuff, so.
Oh, okay, no worries. And so what's interesting about that is when they removed the backing part of the cloth, that there was a faint image of the backside of the body found on the back of the shroud, which is the first time that they realized that there was a back image on it as well. And then back in 2004 is when they put it back on public display. And I think within the first year, over 2 million people saw this thing with their own eyes, which is pretty cool. So that kind of brings me to my clip. So I happened to be scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this interview. His name is Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, and he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson about the shroud. And up until this interview, I'll be honest, like I didn't really believe that the shroud was real, just because, I've seen a lot of the documentaries up until that point, a lot of the carbon dating. Now a lot of people, have problems with carbon dating, but
so real quick about the carbon dating. So the guy, I think his name's Doug Powell. That's the guy's name. It was on Tony's show. So he said the carbon dating was skewed because the test that they used was a repair zone, which messed up, which skewed the results. And I think since then it's been tested again, and it puts it more in the time frame that it should be in if it was the real shroud. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what Jeremiah Johnson said as well. He said the same thing. He said that when they had originally tested it, I forget what year this was, maybe 93 or something, or possibly. That they, exactly right, they tested the upper left-hand corner of the shroud, which was a repair that they had made, and it came back, whatever it was, 1200, 1300 or something, which would match up if it was a repair spot, because it was in not only one fire, but 2 fires. One of the fires I didn't even mention, but it was in two different fires, and so they had to make repairs to both of them.
Speaking of like the supernatural, I mean, surviving two fires, back in, whenever medieval times is amazing in itself,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially in one of the fires, silver melted through some of the cloth,
Yeah.
which is crazy that it even made it through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's definitely crazy. Um, so the first clip I have is Jeremiah Johnson talking about this is the most studied relic and kind of talking about the crucifixion. This clip is about 2 minutes long. These clips are going to be a little bit longer, but I think it's definitely worth it. So let me put us in the background here so we can get this clip up.
Testing has been done, scientific testing.
That is such a great question. This is where I went from being a shroud skeptic, because I was conditioned in Oxford in my residency that we deny miracles, we deny anything supernatural. Oxford is really a factory for creating apostate Bible scholars, by and large. I can say that having been there and been in faculty of theology in Keble College. I know that's not popular, but it's true. I would often go home to my flat in Summertown after reading the Greek New Testament with my cohort, and I would ask my wife, Audrey, am I the only one who actually believes in Jesus in this group? And that's okay. And I was conditioned that this is a Catholic relic. There's no historicity behind this. It's a joke. And I was conditioned by that framework. 102 scientific disciplines have studied the shroud and produced peer-reviewed journals, studies, and cases for all the different aspects. And when I tell you it's the most studied artifact in the world, I mean it. 102 academic disciplines have spent 600,000 scientific hours, like my friend Paul DeLazzo, studying the lasers, like my friend Bruno Barberis, the mathematician from University of Turin, not a theologian, not a preacher, great guy, good friend of mine. Bruno is a mathematician, and he took all of the excellent questions you're asking me, the correspondence of how do we know he was crucified? How was he crucified? What blood type? Crown of thorns, nail print hands, nail scarred side, nail prints in the calcaneus, the heel, which is interesting. We'll talk about that. The scourge marks and then the patibulum abrasions, the crossbeam. When he factored all of those probabilities together, Bruno Barberis, the mathematician, said there is a 1 in 200 billion chance it's anyone other than Jesus of Nazareth. 1 in 200 billion. Because I like my odds.
Because the physical, the representations in this image track so precisely to the
scripture.
Accounts.
Exactly. Not only with scripture, but with what we know of crucifixion from Josephus, from Philo, from all of the other first century historians as well.
Yeah, kind of getting into the, sort of like how much this has been studied and stuff like that, and how it matches so much with the biblical account of Jesus' crucifixion and stuff like that. All the different, like he said, the nail marks, the feet marks, the crown of thorns that was on his head and stuff like that. One clip I didn't pull, which I think is interesting if people want to go out there and watch the full interview, is he kind of talks about like crucifixions and how they did crucifixions and how good the Romans were at crucifixions and stuff like that, and just like he shows like like the nails that they would use and stuff. He actually has like a replica of the nails and stuff, and just that whole thing is just so it's so crazy to listen to, and just absolutely wild what Jesus went through on the cross, for sure.
Oh no, it's crazy. Just the how horrendous it is, just horrific and horrendous. It's just, I just can't imagine,
Yeah, crucifixion was no joke, that's for sure. And yeah, because he goes on to, I don't know if I pulled this clip or not, but he goes on to talk about how with crucifixions and stuff, a lot of the time, I think a lot of people know this, but if you're nailed to the cross with your hands out and your feet are nailed and stuff, you'd have to pull yourself up on the cross in order to like catch your breath and breathe and stuff. And then, because if not, you basically just like suffocate to death, essentially.
Yeah.
So that was the only way that you could actually like live a little bit longer on the cross, because if not, you just basically suffocate to death. And a lot of people, when they were crucified, they would just get crucified, or Jesus also got whipped and stuff beforehand as well. Which is why he probably didn't last so long on the cross. which is because if it's in the Bible, I think Pontius Pilate kind of, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he's kind of like shocked that Jesus is already dead. That he died so quickly or whatever, because usually with crucifixions, they like people last a little bit longer. But I think for what he went through before he got onto the cross, he was already, in such a state where, his shoulder was probably dislocated and, his back was, he probably, I think in one of these clips, I don't think I pulled it, he said they estimate that he lost a third of his blood before he even got to the cross.
Yeah.
So he was already at a point where he was probably, probably gonna die if he wasn't even on the cross, just from the beating that he received prior to that.
Another thing I want to kind of interject. This is kind of not really off topic, but it kind of goes along with it. So Pontius Pilate is kind of an interesting character because, when you're reading the story and he's like, he pretty much finds no fault with Jesus. He's like, so, it's up to you. What do you guys, whoa, that was weird. When he's talking to the crowd, like, what do you want to do? And everyone's like, crucify him. And then he's like, pretty much, I'm going to wash my hands of this. He washes his hands and he leaves it up to the crowd to make the decision of what happens, which is kind of an interesting thing, I think.
Oh, for sure. Because he, as far as I know about him, I think he crucified a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this isn't a guy that's like afraid of crucifixion or afraid to send someone to crucifixion, but quite clearly he didn't find any reason why Jesus should be crucified. So he's like, why would I crucify this guy? I think he thought that the beating itself with the whip and stuff would have sufficed the crowd enough that you wouldn't have to, but then it wasn't enough. And so he's like, oh, well, I'm going to wash my hands of this because there's no reason to crucify this guy. He's done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Which is, like you said, crazy to think about. I think, was it last episode we were talking about the persecution of the early church?
Maybe.
I think it was. We were talking about
2 weeks.
I know. I think we were talking about the disciples and how they died and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things he mentioned in this video is I think one of the reasons why the Romans were so against Christians and stuff is because they used to call like stories about the Roman emperors and stuff, they would call it the Gospels. And so they all, Christians used that term and they used it to describe stories about Jesus as the Gospels. And not only that, they used to call the emperor the Son of God. And they also call Jesus the Son of God. And for the Romans, there only is one Son of God. It's Augustus, or the emperor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also another part of the reason why they didn't like Christians so much, is because it was like they almost seen it as a direct challenge to the emperor himself.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting little angle that I think a lot of people don't think about, or even just know about, that would be a reason why they would hate Christians so much or be afraid of Christianity or not like them, you know what I mean? Because it was so against what, what they believed, and against the emperor himself, essentially.
Yeah.
In a way. So yeah, just interesting.
It is.
So the next clip I have is about the blood on the shroud. It's a little bit short of a clip, but definitely super interesting. Check this out.
When we study the blood that's on the crucified man, it bears correspondence with that Jesus, there's high levels of creatinine, which means he was suffering from kidney failure, high levels of ferritin. His body had inflammation all over it. He was dehydrated. You read John's gospel. Remember in John's gospel, Jesus, one of the 7 sayings, I thirst, he's dehydrated. We know that Jesus likely lost 1/3 of his blood volume during flagellation. So he was dying of a variety of things. Many thinkers believe that he died of suffocation, asphyxiation because of pulmonary edema. And we see that pulmonary edema reflected both on the shroud cloth and on the Sudarian of Oviedo, the face cloth. It's 6 parts pulmonary edema, 1 part blood. Again, a hoaxer is not going to make this stuff up. I mean, it becomes so crazy.
Pulmonary edema, so your lungs fill with fluid.
Fluid, blood, and a mixture. In fact, there is a translucent mixture of fluid around the side wound. We looked at the side wound there. between rib 5 and 6, just above that triangle, which is really a patch from a burn hole. There's actually a translucent serum around that. That again is consistent with what John's gospel said. Blood and water flowed out of Jesus because he was already dead. And so the crucifixion would prolong that. High levels of ferritin, high levels of creatinine. Jesus is suffering liver failure, kidney failure. His body has inflammation all over it. I believe, though, that Jesus died of cardiac arrest, massive heart failure, congenital heart failure, because he has labored breathing. We know all of this from the blood samples.
And those are things like I've never heard ever brought up before with the shroud. So once I heard that, like, sort of information about the blood and how they could tell, like how he, possibly how he died and all the different fluids and like all that kind of stuff, I was just like, wow, this is pretty remarkable evidence. What do you think about all that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's something I know that I heard, it was on Tony's show, it was talking about how there was like the blood that's mixed with the water or the fluids. That's blood that happens after death. Yes. But there's also what they call living blood, which is blood that happens, when he was still alive. It's around the crown of thorns area. So that would have been, the blood where he was bleeding from the crown into his hair, which, would be like living blood because it's in his hair and it hadn't mixed with the fluids from after death. So when the shroud, the face, I think it's the face covering he was talking about.
Yeah. Yep.
It has that blood, like the living blood from where the crown was, which is not the one that was mixed with the fluids. So, which is very interesting also.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And the very fact that they can tell all that from the samples and stuff like that, I think is very impressive. And something that I've never heard before or never talked about before with the shroud. And I think is something that I think is newer as far as the shroud and testing and stuff like that that they've done on it. So yeah, very, very, very interesting.
Another thing that I have always thought, this is not research. You keep hearing that like a little beep. That's so weird. I don't know. Anyways, it's not like some research someone has done. It's just my speculation, my hypothesis. I had always thought that like an antichrist or someone like that would be like a clone of Jesus. They would take the blood from the shroud and try to clone Jesus, and that would be like the Antichrist. I don't know. That's just something I came up with from a long time ago when I was playing with stuff in my head. That was, with technology, who knows? That's just a weird thing to think about,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, nothing's out of the realm of possibility nowadays with AI and everything else. That's because we know they can clone animals at the very least. I don't know about humans, but I know they can definitely clone animals. That's for sure. There's this service where, because I watched this, it's actually a really funny show. It's not Nathan For You, but it's his other show, Nathan Fielder. Have you ever heard of Nathan Fielder before?
No.
Oh, he's incredible. He's really, really funny. But he has his second show. I can't remember the name of his second show, but one of the episodes, they have, it's basically this couple who had this dog that they really loved and loved his personality. And so they're like pretty well off and they have a lot of money. So they were able to clone their dog and make like a new version of their dog. But what they realized is that the dog, the new dog, the clone dog, looks exactly like the other dog that they had, like to a T. Like it looks exactly like it, but the personalities are different. So like even though the dog is like essentially the same dog, it's an exact clone of the original dog, the personalities of the dogs are completely different. Which I think was interesting, because I always assumed, like with cloned animals, that they would be like completely the same, but they're not completely the same. The personalities are like completely different. So Nathan Fielder, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is weird. I was just thinking about that. You know how, say, twins, I mean, that if you think of cloning, it's the process behind cloning is made from the cells of another person, right? And you think about twins, that's done like in utero, like whenever the cells split and form two identical babies.
Yeah.
The identical, that's kind of the same, but they each have their own personality. But they're essentially the same person, but different,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the same thing with cloning. I don't know. I just thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, kind of like when you think about it, that they would have different personalities. So anyway, the meaning of the episode is he tried to, because he thought, it's like, well, maybe because the dogs didn't grow up in the same environment, the dogs were a lot more different just because they didn't grow up in the same environment. So then he replicates the original environment that the other dog grew up in and tries to get the new dog to do some of the things that the old dog did, and he got the new dog to like do a couple different things that the old dog would do and stuff like that. But I mean, still the personalities were just not the same.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there just because we're talking about cloning and stuff like that. So yeah, just like, it's just interesting to think about like that kind of stuff.
It is.
Cloning's weird.
It is.
Because I would think about, because I love my animals and stuff like that. I asked, when we saw that episode, I asked Nicole, I was like, would you want to clone our like cats? Because like they cloned their dog or whatever. I was like, if we had the money, would you want to clone our cats, or would you want, and she said no, you know what I mean? Just because they're, they would look the same, but they wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah. So yeah, just kind of weird.
Yeah, it is
definitely weird and expensive too. I think it cost them like $40,000 or something like that.
That's crazy
to clone their animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's a lot of money.
It is. Just get a new dog.
Yeah. A new dog with a new personality, and you have new memories.
Yep, definitely.
But anyway, this next clip I have is about the crucifixion and the crossbeam and stuff like that. So we might get into some of the things we've already kind of talked about a little bit, but check this out.
The crossbar.
That is such a great question. So, and this is what's so amazing. When again, I don't privilege this. I just look at this through historical eyes. When you look at the back, the dorsal image on the shroud, you can see that there are scourge marks all over it. But in the right shoulder, coming down at a diagonal, there are abrasions all over the back. We mentioned that Jesus, the man of the crucified man of the shroud, weighed around 175 to 180 pounds. The patibulum, which is just the crossbeam. So they didn't carry the whole cross. They would only carry the crossbeam. And again, that wood was scarce as well, by the way, in the Roman Empire. So that crossbeam would have been used again and again for other crucifixion victims. And so Jesus experiences the scourging, and then he's asked to carry the cross. And that the crossbeam, the patibulum, weighs around 125 pounds, and he can't carry it. He falls. And this is one of the most moving experiences for me when I was studying the signatures of the pollen. We actually have not just pollen, but we have limestone and clay soil that is native only to Jerusalem. And it's on 3 parts of the crucified man in the shroud. Are you ready for this? It's on the feet, obviously, because he walked barefoot. It's on the knees and then the tip of the nose. So when Jesus is carrying the patibulum, he falls. And he not only falls, he falls hard. He collapses and his face gashes the ground, because we have in the tip of his nose actual soil from the land of Israel, from Jerusalem.
So the crossbeam is the piece of wood to which his
fastened.
His wrists are nailed. And that's tied to the vertical post?
Yeah, to match the Greek letter tau. So it would look like a capital T. We see that. And he's tied to that post, but he's nailed to it. Make no mistake, he was nailed to it.
Yeah, I just thought because I've heard of doing some research on this, listened to that episode. They talked about like the different pollen and stuff and different plant matter and stuff that's on the shroud. And a lot of it comes from that Mediterranean, Israel type area and stuff like that. But the dirt samples and stuff, the granite and stuff on the shroud itself, I think is one of the most compelling evidences for sure, just because of the, where it comes from obviously at this shroud came, covered a person that walked and lived in Jerusalem area, because it's the only place where you can get that sort of sand. And I'm sorry, but like, if you're gonna fake something like this way back when, there's no way you would think to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, thousands of years from now, they're gonna test the shroud, and we got to make sure there's dirt on there from, you know what I mean? Like, that's just like, that's even crazier. Because if you're gonna fake something like this, you're just gonna use, fake blood or something, and like a lot of people be like, oh, it's a statue, like that's kind of like what a lot of the like people would say, like naysayers would say about the shroud and stuff, that they used a statue to do it, and they just used someone's blood in order to do it, and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. But with the dirt samples, I think that's, and the pollen and all the other stuff that's on the shroud that they've gotten samples from, I think that's definitely super impressive.
Yeah.
As far as evidence goes.
And I keep harkening back to Tony's show, but he was talking about the pollen samples and how you can actually map out the whole places, all the places that the shroud traveled, because of the pollen from different places. Like it went from Jerusalem to wherever, like Constantinople or whatever, and then to France, and you can like actually map that out from all the different pollens that are on there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another thing, I don't think he mentioned, but there was, I don't know if it's Constantinople or not, but there was some place that the shroud was in the archway above, like the entrance to a city. It was like walled up inside of it, like sort of like a vault, like as a holy relic to bless people coming in the city. I can't remember where that was, but they talked about it on Tony's show. So,
that's cool. It might be Constantinople.
Maybe.
It very well could be, for sure. Because that was definitely one of the places it would be, and that's definitely a city, and part of the like Holy Roman Empire and all that stuff. So yeah, that's definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So the next clip I have is it's kind of like what we were talking about before with the 1976 VP8 image analyzer, and he also gets into the moment of resurrection, which I think is one of the most, kind of like we were talking earlier about how the image, not only is it 3D, but there's also seems to be something else with this image that is very, very compelling evidence. And I'm going to play that. This is definitely a longer clip, but I think I just couldn't cut it down just because I thought it's around 5 minutes, but I just think it's worth listening to.
Yeah, definitely.
Glad we have this time. In 1976, and I want to set the context. 2 Air Force Academy professors, Eric Jumper and John Jackson, use a machine that was developed to study the effects of the nuclear bomb called a VP8 image analyzer. It's a brightness map. And they would use that to scan the impact of the nuclear bomb. So that's what the machine is. These are not pastors. These are not theologians. These are professors at the Air Force Academy. They get an image of the Shroud of Turin, likely the Henri 1930s image that C.S. Lewis had in his bedroom, and they put it through the VP8 image analyzer. And they realize there are 3D information encoded in the Shroud of Turin. No other picture does that. I want to make sure this sets in. There's 3D information. There's like a holographic topography brightness map of the man of the shroud that looks like you're looking at the surface, geography, topography of land.
There's like depth.
There is depth. There's 3D. The way they said it, analytically, there's 3D information encoded in the image of the crucified man. And when they put pictures of their grandchildren through it, it was just smeared 2D images. So no other image does this. So that VP8 image analyzer, you can go on YouTube and watch it done, is what gave rise to what's called the Shroud of Turin Research Project, the scientific STURP team, which consists of 33 scientists, 26 who went to Turin, Italy. They had 5 days. They had 120 hours to study the shroud. Keep in mind, the Savoy family allowed this, not the Catholic Church. This is controversial, but I don't believe the Catholic Church would have ever allowed the Shroud of Turin to be researched. And that's not my saying. That's Barry Schwartz, who was the documenting photographer who photographed the shroud in 1978. It was the private family, the Savoys, the House of Savoy, who allowed this research team, 33 scientists, to study the shroud for 5 days. Okay, so they took 4 years. They didn't go on Twitter, didn't exist. They didn't go on social media, didn't exist. They took 4 years to publish all of their findings. And I haven't used this word yet until this point in our interview. The STIRP team, these 33 scientists, by the way, Roy Rogers says, give me 15 minutes in the scientific method and I'll prove it's a hoax. He wasn't saying that after 15 minutes of studying the shroud. They all thought they had a free trip to Italy. They were in the lobby, Barry Schwartz, one of the original STIRP teams, and I met many of them. Sadly, many of them are now dead. But they're meeting over drinks in the lobby of the Italy Hotel in Turin, which is a beautiful city to visit. And they're all joking that they have a free trip to Italy to debunk this hoax. No one was saying that a few days later. So these 33 scientists publish, and they prove, this is the word I'm going to use, it's proven. The shroud is not a work of art. It is not a man-made image. They can't tell you how it's made, but they proved there's no pigment, there's no dye, there's no paint. They cannot explain how the image is there, but it is not man-made. So for the Christians out there or religiously minded people who think that like we're violating the second commandment right now, looking at this, we're not violating the second commandment, Tucker, so we can be at ease.
What's the second commandment?
Is you shall not worship a graven image. A graven image is by definition a man-made object, a handmade object. The shroud is not man-made. It's otherworldly. So we're not violating the second commandment. So that allows people
and what's
to breathe
otherworldly
easier.
about it? The 3D.
That the image, here's the cool part about the shroud. I believe we're looking at the moment of Jesus's resurrection, ultimately. All of this conversation leads that something powerful happens on that first Easter morning. It's electromagnetic radiation that's so powerful. We don't have this amount of watt power on Earth. 40 billion watts of energy, but it happens. It's pick power. It's not like the power when you flip on. It took me a while to learn this. It's almost like a cold energy because it happens so quickly in a twinkling of an eye.
It doesn't evaporate.
It doesn't
the linen.
squirt. That's what the labs could heat up and essentially tattoo the shroud, but it would burn up instantly. It would scorch. This didn't scorch. It was the pulse rate, which was so, and I know we're getting deep, but it's important to be nuanced in this conversation and precise. The pulse rate power, 40,000 billion watts traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second, we believe is that moment that Jesus' body is resurrected. And that's what leaves this image.
But whatever it was a process that
chemically changed the fibrils at a 0.2 depth, which is surface level, to leave this image.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Especially when he's talking about like how the image is like burned into the cloth, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And
because that's what I was talking about earlier. I think I had it backwards, but it's just on the surface. And if you use paint or something like that, it was soak through all the fibers.
Yes,
that's the way
right.
paint works. Yeah,
of course.
Or any kind of fluid would soak through, but the image is not. And that's another misconception. People are like, oh, the image is blood. It's not blood. There's bloody places on the fabric, but the image itself is not any pigment. It's burnt in, almost like, I don't know if anyone out there has ever done screen printing or anything like that, or photography. So you actually have to, just screen printing, not really photography. So you take an image and you put photosensitive emulsion down on a screen, and you put an image over top of it. You turn on light, ultraviolet light, and it burns the image into the emulsion. And so you wash it off, and the image is left, and you use that to screen print. It's kind of like a similar thing. Like, it's so bright and so powerful that it burns the image into the cloth. So
yeah. And like you were saying, the image burned into the cloth, but yet didn't burn the cloth.
Yeah.
Essentially. Which is just so crazy to think about. We did get a comment. I wanted to bring it up. Deborah, I had not watched the Tucker or Tony interviews yet. The evidence is so compelling, and think we had to be in this place scientifically to prove it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just powerful evidence, to be honest with you. Just absolutely stunning. Especially when, like his theory that the reason why the image is burned is because that's the moment of Jesus's resurrection that we're that caught on the image. Which, I mean, when he explains it like that, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense to me.
I mean, the scientists can't explain it. I mean, it's not he's not man-made, you know.
Yeah, and they can't replicate it either. That's another part of it too.
And it's
like,
a 3D image, you know, like you
Mhm.
you know, which is awesome. It's to imagine. I want to go watch that because I haven't seen that that documentary he's talking about with it shows the people scanning it with the, I guess, whatever that device was that
VP8 image analyzer.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'd love to see that image and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the negative, the negative photo, which I could probably find at Google.
And there was kind of a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment that he was talking about. I don't know if you caught that or not. He said that I think it was a photograph or something. He said that C.S. Lewis, that's the same image he had hanging in his bedroom, which I thought was pretty cool. You know.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Here we go. I was just trying to find the negative image of the Shroud of Torin. Let's see if let me share my screen real quick. There we go. There it is right there. So like that's the shroud itself on the left, and then on the right is sort of the negative image or whatever.
Yeah. And you can see how it just pops off and it's almost lifelike, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, for sure. No, it's absolutely incredible, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely absolutely incredible. So just one more clip here, and this is kind of like about the carbon dating thing that we were kind of talking about earlier, where, you know, they only tested the top left-hand corner of the shroud, and he kind of talks about that.
In the late 80s, thank you for bringing me back. It's agreed upon that 7 laboratories would do blind research, carbon dating of the shroud. And the scientists who studied it said, whatever you do, don't take the sample from the fringes because the shroud has been repaired. There's 2 things we're looking at, Tucker, that it took me a minute to learn all this. There's these parallel, those lines, those are burn marks, those are scorch marks. These 16 triangular shapes, those are patches. The shroud survives a fire in 1532. The nuns stitched it up with a backing cloth. And they also, many believe,
where was the fire?
This was in Chambéry, France, 1532, before it moves to Turin in 1578. So it survives this fire. It's doused. The shroud has survived at least 3 fires. And so there are also water stains. You can see those watermarks as well on the shroud. This is what's amazing. Like if this was a work of art, it would have diluted it. The image would have smeared or vanished. None of that happens. The image is still, as you just saw with the classic invert on my phone, very apparent. And so it survives all of that, but it did come in contact. I mean, millions of people have likely touched this shroud. I mean, it would be brought out for baby baptisms. That upper right corner would be cut off. Like if I really loved you, Tucker, I would give you a piece of the shroud to take home with you after having dinner with me if you visited me in one of my castles. I mean, so it's known that aspects of the shroud were given out even for indulgences. So in the top left, you can see with the naked eye, anyone who pulls up the shroud can see it is a contaminated area of the shroud. It's dark. It's been touched a lot. It's the fringes of the shroud. And so there's an invisible weave there that many great scholars believe that was patched. And so the scholars said, whatever you do, don't carbon date the corners of the shroud because it's been so contaminated. It's a contaminated sample. Get in the middle of the shroud and carbon date those samples. So what did this community do? These 7 labs that were supposed to carbon date it, actually only 3 labs did. No one ever answered why 7 labs didn't do it. It wasn't done blindly. 3 labs, Tucson, Arizona, Zurich, Switzerland, and Oxford, England, carbon date the shroud. What part did they take? The upper left-hand corner that any non-scientist can see as a contaminated sample. and they carbon dated that.
Well, it's
sample.
a patch.
Exactly. Thank you for noticing that. Exactly.
Are you're talking about the
very top left?
that's a different color,
right? It's dark. That is what they carbon dated, and then ironically, the British Museum suppresses the raw data of the carbon dating for 29 years.
Yeah, so definitely very impressive, and kind of like how you were talking about before with the how they only tested the fringes of the shroud, and how the shroud was repaired so many times that they tested the repair and not the actual shroud itself. The original part. So it's no wonder that they had carbon dating that was from a different time period or whatever.
Yeah.
A much later time period, because if it was repaired, it would have been repaired in that 1200, 1300 portion of time. When the nuns first repaired it, my guess is from that first fire, which I think he said was 1359. I think he said. So yeah, so definitely impressive. So after all this, kind of the shroud evidence that we've seen today, where are you out on the shroud? Are you a firm believer in the shroud?
I 100% think it's real. It's legit. I mean, like back whenever I saw the photograph evidence about the negative and all that, I was on board with it back then. So, because being a photographer, that's enough evidence for me. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you, especially after watching his interview and stuff, and seeing all the different points he brings up and stuff. I was like, wow. So yeah, definitely something I think is probably more on the real side than fake side for sure. Yeah, I just thought it was a very interesting topic to talk about, just because it's one of those things that's probably one of the only, I was kind of talking earlier, like one of those only artifacts that's actually probably the most well known besides the Holy Grail or the Spear of Destiny, is probably the Shroud of Turin,
Yeah.
And definitely a very impressive sort of artifact that has definitely stood the test of time for sure. The very fact it's still around is pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I love that interview. So yeah, if you guys want to watch that full interview, if you go on Talker's website, you can find that full interview, or just search the guy's name, which is Johnson. I forget his first name off the top of my head right now. I have it written down here. Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look him up, I'm sure he probably has other interviews too about the Shroud and stuff like that. But yeah, just super, super fascinating for sure. Yeah, I just can't get over how fascinating that is.
It is very fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Just really, really, really cool, and kind of opened my eyes to the Shroud of Turin for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. There's just so much evidence that, you can't dispute,
Mm-hmm.
And I recommend you guys watching Tony's episode. Watch it on YouTube, because there's a lot of video evidence that's shared. Let me find the episode number for you guys. Give me 1 second here.
So that must have been recently, right?
It was a couple weeks ago. Let's see. Almost there, guys. Almost there. Okay. It is it's episode 782, Shroud of Turin, evidence that changes history. So, yeah. Easy to find. Shroud of Turin on the Confessionals YouTube channel. So,
yeah, and you were saying that the guy that was on there works with Jeremiah Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's definitely cool.
His name is Doug Powell.
Doug Powell. No, that's cool. There's another guy who does, I've seen him before a long time ago. I'll probably end up doing an episode about him, because he's in that same He's in that same world as the other guy that you always talk about. That went to Jerusalem and found all the different.
Ron White.
Ron White, yeah.
Yeah.
So he talks about Ron a lot in his videos and stuff, and he's a creationist. So he talks a lot about.
Is it a Kent Hovind?
Yeah.
I know.
So
no, I've been a fan of Kent Hovind since, gosh,
in the 90s.
no. I probably was introduced to him early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
he just recently came up on my algorithm on Facebook, and so I've been seeing a bunch of his videos on a whole bunch of different things. So I got to figure out what exactly I want to bring up with him, because he talks about so many different things.
yeah,
But
his creationist stuff is really good.
yeah, especially his flood stuff.
Flood stuff and the dinosaur stuff he talks about.
Yes, absolutely. The dinosaur stuff, the flood stuff. Yep. And how the man coexisted with dinosaurs and stuff like that, and all the evidence that is in history about that.
There's a lot of sad stuff that happened with him. I don't know if you know about it.
Yeah.
So
the government tried to come after him.
Yeah. So he didn't believe. Well, he had his own ministry and stuff, and he doesn't believe in taxation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he got put in prison for like not tax fraud, tax evasion or something like that. So he was in there for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw a video on that because he kind of explains it and was talking about it. I wish I would have thought to pull it.
Yeah.
But I'll if I remember, I'll try to pull it for next episode. But he like talks about that and like how it happened and stuff like that, and it's kind of wild how it happens essentially.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, like if you take out more than $10,000 in your bank account, then the bank has to record that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a long time, that's how they would track and try to find out, like, with drug dealers and people like that they, like, oh, they're pulling out, more than $10,000 out of their banks and blah, blah, blah. But then they ended up changing the law so that if you pulled out, I think more like, I think it was five, whatever it was a different amount. And so I guess with the school, they used to pull out, a pretty good amount of money to pay bills and stuff like that. And he ended up just, not even thinking, just pulling out money like how they always do it or whatever. And that's, they thought he was trying to evade, the government was trying to evade him, and, tax evasion, like you're saying, and stuff like that. And they ended up going through like 3 different juries and a whole bunch of stuff, and like, really cooked the books against him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He ended up going to jail for a couple years, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's really good. Very, very knowledgeable. It's really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's pretty much all the videos I've been watching is like Shroud stuff and that.
Yeah. I actually
like
saw
constantly.
him. I saw him speak like back in like maybe 2004 or 5. So
Oh no, when he was doing his little tours.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool because I've seen a bunch of his videos that he was like, oh, he was saying that he was in Tennessee and stuff. So I was like, oh, I wonder if Jason's ever heard of him.
Yep. Definitely heard of him.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So yeah, we'll have to, who knows, maybe get him on an episode, because I know
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be absolutely incredible, because he's on, I've seen him recently because he's still alive, and it looks like he does some sort of podcast or question and answer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't looked into what he does now, but it looks like he has some sort of dinosaur world or something.
Yeah, in Florida. Yeah.
In Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what it seemed like to me.
So I think it's called the Creation Museum or something like that.
Oh, okay. In Pensacola or something?
Yeah, Pensacola, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so he does like a bunch of like question and answer type things or whatever. And he was on a podcast talking about the stuff with the government stuff. That's how I found out about that. And so I thought that was interesting. So, yeah. So that's definitely coming down in the future for sure.
Yeah. And I think his son has done a lot of stuff too. I think his son's like speaking and touring and stuff now.
Oh, no
If
kidding.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. So yeah, we'll have that to look forward to in the future. But yeah, definitely a cool episode talking about the Shroud of Turin.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
It's really good.
yeah, absolutely. Um, as soon as I saw those, like that one, I saw the one clip, and I was just like, all right, well, this is definitely what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So then,
Also, I would like to get
Yeah.
Ellie talking about people coming on. I'd like to get Ellie Marzulli on and talk to him about some stuff. I know he's
that
going to
name
be on
sounds
Tony's show.
familiar.
Yeah, he's going to be on Tony's show pretty soon. But I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's been at this for so long that we
What
can
is
talk
he?
about
What is he known for?
Nephilim. Like on the
Okay.
Trail of the Nephilim is his video series. He's written a few books. He's gone to Peru and stuff and like investigated different bones of giants that were found there. And he's, what is it? His other book? Something, I wish I could think of the name of his other book. But yeah, I mean, he's great. He also did the Kandahar giant story. He kind of broke
okay.
that.
Yeah. Speaking of people that come up in my algorithm, have you heard of Wes Huff?
It sounds familiar.
He's like a theologian type guy from Canada who does a lot of like research into like old versions of the Bible and stuff like that, and
Okay.
like in the Greek and stuff like that. And he's a wealth of knowledge about like extra chronicle books and stuff like that, and certain things that people say that I was like, oh, like he debated this one guy about like some of the books that aren't in the Bible, like the Gospel of Barnabas, or some of those like the Gospel of Judas and stuff like that, and like why they're not in the Bible and stuff like that. Like, so like, and he breaks it down like pretty well and stuff like that, even to like bringing up the facts of like the names that they use in those versions of their Gospels don't match up with the version, the names that people would be using at the time that the other Gospels were written. Like going that kind of like deep level on it, because like with certain names and stuff, like it's like how you can tell like what time period people are from by their name, what they're named and stuff like that. Like certain names only, like even nowadays, the name Skylar, right? Just for an example, would be a name that's definitely from a newer part of time. Not like you wouldn't meet someone named Skylar from 1950 or 1960. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like a newer name. And so like, and so some of these extra like Gospels that didn't make the Bible would have names that wouldn't match up with the time period that they're supposed to be from.
Yeah.
They would match up from a time period like much later than what they were claiming to be from. And so like he was using that kind of evidence to like, dispute these other Gospels that they, this is like the reason why they weren't chosen and stuff. And like, I was just like, oh, I never would think about that. And stuff like that. So yeah, stuff like that. And he was actually on Rogan. I don't know when, but recently he was on Rogan, and kind of talking about. We talked about the Book of Enoch. He talked about a whole bunch of different stuff. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like is it the Book of Enoch that's referenced by I want to say Jesus somebody references the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, someone does. I forget who exactly it is, but yeah, it is referenced.
Yeah,
for sure. And the Book of Enoch is interesting because there's different sections of the Book of Enoch too, depending. Like there's a part of Enoch that's written like earlier, and then there's parts of Enoch, like in the Ethiopian Bible, there's parts of Enoch that are like from like further on, that are written much later. And so so it's definitely interesting, and there's obviously some parts of Enoch that don't match up with the Bible. like there's a couple things in there that are kind of like don't 100% match up. Like I was watching a video actually right before we got on talking about Noah, and in the book of Enoch it mentions that Noah's name was changed from Lamech to Noah, but in the Bible it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So like there's like a couple things like that that don't match up 100%. But it was definitely the early book of Enoch was something that people would know about.
Yeah.
And
So
stuff
here,
like that.
I just found Jude 1:14 through 15. The author of Jude directly quotes Enoch, stating, "Enoch, the seventh man from Adam." And he says the passage is widely believed to be from First Enoch. Hebrews 11:15. And then Luke 3:37. Oh, these are just mentioning Enoch. Hold on. I don't know if it's a book of Enoch. I don't know.
Or just the man
Anyways,
Enoch.
They're just the man Enoch. It says the book Enoch is referenced in Hebrews 11:5. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, it's definitely an interesting read for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with the Watchers and the fallen angels and all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
definitely interesting. For sure. And those guys like really get into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like when it was written and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely very interesting at the
It
very
is. It's very interesting.
But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. I think an awesome episode for sure. Definitely cool to talk about the Shroud and stuff like that. And like if you would ask me like a week ago if the Shroud was real, I probably would say no.
Really?
Yeah, well, just because I hadn't heard all this other stuff. The last
Okay.
time I heard of it was from the early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like it is like a Catholic relic and that kind of stuff too. So
Yeah.
I'm a little skeptical of
Of Catholic
anything Catholic related. No offense against Catholics, but
But you're wrong. No.
yeah. I'm a Protestant at heart. I mean, so yeah.
I mean, there wasn't any wars fought, Protestants versus Catholics. Never.
Oh no, nothing we can mention. But so yeah, definitely an awesome episode for sure, and we'll be back a week after next. I don't know what we're gonna talk about yet, but maybe Hovind, maybe West Huff, maybe something else entirely.
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe something will happen.
Maybe 3-Eye Atlas, because I have theories about that. I don't know if it's a theory or not. I mean, it's just in the book of Revelation it talks about Wormwood, the asteroid, essentially. And I don't know. I'm just putting two together with this asteroid from beyond our solar system that's coming in. So
oh, the one that they were like sort of worried about.
Yeah, 3-Eye Atlas is what it's called. The who was it? Some scientist said that it was a alien mothership or something.
Oh, yeah. Or if aliens would come, it would be on one of these asteroids or something. I did hear someone say that. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you for watching another episode of Image of the Invisible. Like I said, we'll be back week after next. Make sure to subscribe, like, share this episode. Fattack.com. I think that's it.
That's it.
Awesome. Peace.
Peace.